Good afternoon. I'm David Plazas, the Opinion and Engagement Editor for the Tennessean. And today we have the pleasure of having Matthew DelRossi, who is a candidate for at-large Metro Council seat. We have Maria DeVarine, the Executive Editor of the Tennessean, with us as well. The Tennessean Editorial Board is doing this as a public service to introduce voters to the leading mayoral candidates and also the at-large Metro Council candidates. I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And absolutely. And tell us, why are you running for this office?
That's a good question. Running for office is something that takes a lot out of a person. And I'm running because I just can't sit back and watch changes happen to the city that I love without playing an active role in it. A lot of people that I want to represent have the same concerns that I have. So I just want to be able to represent the people that I care about and the city that I care about.
Elaborate a little bit on the concerns. What are those concerns that you have that others are talking about?
Well, we're a tourism-based economy, and it's based on the music industry. It's based on performers and people who are typically not always of the highest income bracket. But that being the basis of our economy, it's talent-based. That being the basis of our economy, if we don't, like the parking, for instance, if we don't have affordable means for people to get to and from their gigs downtown, then it's not going to be lucrative for people to play gigs downtown. And that is going to affect us on the back end. People can't expect to show up and not get paid. It takes a lot of work to be a musician. I'm a professional musician. You got to put a lot of time into it. It's a craft. It's like writing. It's something that not everybody can do. Not everybody gets it. Not everybody is capable of it. And those that are capable are usually, a little bit different than everybody else. They might not have the same priorities. They're not always interested in just making money. They're more interested in performing their art. They're artists, right? Art comes from passion. Passionate people don't always make the most rational decisions. But without art, we don't have an economy. That is what people come to Nashville to see. They come to see professional musicians, the best in the country, move here. And if we don't take care of them, or at least consider their needs when we're making legislation, then it's going to affect our economy negatively. And we're not going to have one of the best economies in the country. How can we have one of the best economies in the country and have a hole in our budget and have to, privatize parking? It's decisions like that I think need to have a voice like myself involved in.
Thank you.
When you're out talking with folks, what are the top 2 or 3 items they want you to tackle if you're elected?
Homelessness is a very complex issue. And my family has been involved in feeding the homeless since I was a child. I mean, my father runs a food pantry in Massachusetts, and my mother was a volunteer cook at my brother's table in Lynn, Massachusetts, which is like a soup kitchen. So she would feed hundreds of people every week. And so that's an issue that a lot of people are concerned about. Businesses are concerned about. It's an economic issue. Panhandling downtown is destructive to our economy. But it needs to be taken care of in a very kind way. I'm not saying that we should put everybody in jail or put them all in the mental hospital, but we need to think about it realistically. Downtown is an area where panhandlers can make a lot of money and have easy access to drugs and alcohol. And that's a major distraction for somebody who might be in recovery or should be in recovery. I think that we should take a park that is not really even being used right now. It's a little park. It's over in the Donaldson area on the Greenway. And we should make it into like a food forest with a homeless shelter and a camp, and have our existing resources for like the homeless commission. Center those resources there, away from downtown. And then when people, then when we have a resource available to people that is welcoming, something that it's a beautiful park. It's right on the river. It'd be the perfect location for a food forest, for a farm, something that everybody could enjoy, but also providing services and volunteer opportunities to people so they can get a hand up instead of a hand out. I think that is really one of my major callings in running for office, is to create an environment in Nashville where if you're homeless, I'm not talking about on the verge of homelessness, I'm saying if you're currently panhandling in downtown, we see the same people all the time, then here's an opportunity for you to go, get the resources you need, which might be even just getting, as simple as getting an ID. A lot of people qualify for Social Security disability, get them cleaned up, on a volunteer basis, and provide them with activities that are beneficial. I mean, a lot of people in recovery, they love farming. A lot of people love animals. Animal therapy is known to help a lot of people in many ways. So you kind of combine these resources in a park that will attract people to come. They could possibly turn a profit. I mean, there probably are restaurants that would buy locally produced produce and meat even. And people could learn trades there as well. I mean, nobody wants to talk about butchering, but I mean, you could teach people how to do jobs, and then once they're qualified for services or they're qualified for a job or they've got their life back, we can then help them find some place to live. It may not even be in Nashville, but there's plenty of other places where if you're on Social Security, you might be able to find affordable housing somewhere else. I mean, my goal there is to not just give people a meal, but to give them a life. So that to me, and I had a lot of people who continue to support me because I put homelessness is an issue for me. And I don't think this is something that would cost the city a lot of money. I think it's something that if we work in conjunction with existing resources, that it could possibly be neutral or even produce profit.
Thank you.
One of the things that you mentioned was the hole in the budget and the outsourcing of parking enforcement.
It's a big deal.
If you were elected Metro Council member, at-large Metro Council member, how would you want to approach the budget for the following year?
Well, we need to see it. We need to have, I mean, you get a lot of people talking about transparency that are currently on the city council, and they haven't exhibited the transparency that we really need. There is absolutely no logical reason why we would have a hole in our budget right now. It is clearly, to the naked eye, it's corruption and cronyism. The money is just it's going out the door when it should be sitting in a bank account. How would I address the budget as a councilman? I don't make the budget. That's the job of the mayor. I would vote on a budget, and I would make sure that I use my voice to alert the electorate when things are being tried to be pushed through when no one's paying attention. That's what I notice a lot is during an election, they'll pull a plan like that. And then, when no one's paying attention, it'll end up on the docket, it'll end up getting pushed through, and then nothing you can do about it. But that is a big deal. I mean, privatizing the parking would be destructive to our economy in many ways. I mean, it's hard enough to make money as a musician, and it's and not making it easier in Nashville, which is Music City. I mean, maybe we could, like somebody suggested, we could modernize the parking ourselves without having to, because that's almost an admission of incompetence, saying that we can't manage this city asset better than this private company can, is admitting that our government, that our leaders are incompetent. It's like, we can't run this better than this company. Well, what's different between us running it and a private company running it? We could just run it better. I mean, somewhere in there, somebody got a job they don't deserve. Somebody got a job they're not really qualified for, and they're not running the city's parking efficiently. So we don't privatize it, but sure, we modernize it. But if you work downtown, and this is not just for musicians, this is service industry workers, bartenders, waitresses, waiters, anybody that's working down there that is actually the mechanism of our economy, right? They should have a parking pass, not provided by their employer, but provided by the city. I mean, if we can modernize parking and allow the service industry workers and musicians a way to get downtown affordably, then I'd be for modernizing it, but not privatizing it. I mean, I'm not against privatizing some things, and I'm not against selling, for instance, this is not that popular right now, but I don't think that the heating and cooling system, I probably shouldn't say this because we're trying to sell it, but that technology is pretty old. It's on the verge of being obsolete. People are going to be in the near future investing in centralized systems that are like much more efficient. You'll be able to cool the room with a smaller air conditioner. I mean, that's the future, is more efficient, smaller scale. And this is a huge scale heating and cooling system. Basically, it's a giant HVAC that gets pushed into all these buildings downtown. So I think we should sell that. Well, we still can because people are going to not be using it in the future. Hopefully, I didn't just crush the deal.
So Nashville, you touched on a little bit, is a growing city. And some people would like to see the growth slow down because we can't keep up with the services that are needed. What is your viewpoint on the growth and the direction the city's going?
Well, we can't stop people from procreating. Growth happens exponentially all over the world, population growth, okay? And so Nashville is always going to attract creative types. It's always going to attract music industry people. It's always going to attract people who just love music. So that's always going to be growth. But we need to not be short-sighted in it. We need to absolutely invest our infrastructure bonds in infrastructure. I heard somebody on here say they think that they should use it as a bargaining chip to get developers to build affordable units. That's not a bargaining chip. That's sidewalks. You gave $11 million of sidewalks to Amazon. $11 million of sidewalks went to Amazon. That's sidewalks that belong in my neighborhood, that belong in your neighborhood. That's infrastructure bonds that we pay for that. That is what our property tax is. When we talk about debt service, we're paying the principal on our bond issuance. So we issued debt to the citizens of Davidson County for Amazon, one of the largest companies in the world, who poses a threat to brick and mortar retailers everywhere. So how is it truly beneficial to our economy to stimulate a company that is crushing its competitors? I mean, we're going to be closing down stores if Amazon gets their way. If it's Amazon's world, we're going to have drones flying and delivering your pizza. Say goodbye to pizza delivery guys. That's jobs. That's real jobs. Brick and mortar stores, people delivering pizza, not drones delivering pizza, that's jobs. That's an economy. And in the grand scheme of things, they could be here or they could be elsewhere. We did not need to issue $11 million in infrastructure bonds to one of the world's biggest companies. It's highly offensive to me. And I think only 4 council people didn't vote for that. I mean, when it comes to getting a zoning variance, all you have to do is say, no, we're not going to give you this zoning variance unless you come back with a proposal we like. You know, we don't have to call it inclusionary zoning. We can call it negotiating. We could just say, we're not going to give you that deal if we don't get a plan we like. It's that simple.
You had mentioned the music industry. Other big industries here in this area include the automotive and the healthcare industry and finance. You mentioned in your questionnaire, though, that you want to attract aerospace industry. Why is that?
Just because that's the future. It's always been the future. I'm a science fiction buff. I love technology, and aerospace is not going anywhere. I mean, that's one of the biggest industries, biggest money-making industries. Companies like, I'm not going to name any names because I have no relationship with these companies, but that would be ideal for me. I mean, we're talking about expanding the airport, right? And it would be wonderful to have some real high-tech companies in Nashville. And we're a good location for it because ground transportation is so effective. I mean, we're like half a tank of gas from like a lot of people. I forget the statistic off the top of my head, but we are a hub, and so let's hub it up.
Can you talk to us a little bit about schools and education? I think some people have said the mayor and the council should be more involved in governing our schools and running our schools. How do you feel about that?
I think the people need to be more involved. I've been doing a lot of research on this, and the way our school board is set up is they really don't have any oversight into how they budget. And one of my biggest issues is, my brother told me not to use them in my in my campaign, but I'm going to do it anyway. My brother, he volunteers his time to do a rock band program at Inglewood Middle School. He volunteers his time. He's not paid. Well, come to find out, he's been doing this program for a couple of years. Then all of a sudden, they're actually paying somebody to do the exact same program that he created and is volunteering to do, and they're doing it in another district that it's more affluent. They're doing this. They're paying somebody to come in and do what my brother's volunteering to do in a more affluent district. But they should be paying somebody to do it in a less affluent district, right? But it really comes down to a Supreme Court ruling called San Antonio Independent School District versus Rodriguez. Because of this ruling, the school board is not required to fund schools equitably. This was basically a ruling that said the richer districts can get more money because they're contributing more money, because their property values are higher. So the property values of a rich district, they go into the pot, and the pot doesn't get distributed evenly. The pot gets distributed in relationship to how much is being paid in by that particular area. The only way that we can truly make the schools equitable would be to overturn this ruling. Now, other states and other counties, other places, they have changed their laws in order to fund the schools equitably. But it doesn't seem like Tennessee is interested in doing that. So somebody should sue Metro Public Schools with the intent of overturning the Supreme Court ruling, or at least bring national attention to it. Because at the end of the day, we don't get to see how they're budgeting. We don't. They have full autonomy in that. That's just 5 people with too much power. Now, I'm not saying we need to break up the school board, or that the mayor should be more involved, or the city council should be more involved. But people want more money to their schools, and they're talking to their council members, and they're talking to the mayor candidates about how are we going to get this. So I'm going to be honest with the people. We have to sue Metro Public Schools. We have to sue them to equitably fund the school system. I mean, it bothers me quite a bit, because education is so important to somebody's upbringing. It's so important to their perception of their value to society, how they're respected. And I mean, come on, kids fight over iPhones versus Androids. I mean, come on. Kids are always going to be like that. So at least provide everybody who's going to public school with a level playing field.
Since you touched on equitability within the school district, there's also concern about equality throughout our community, so that everybody can take advantage of some of the services that are available, and make sure that all parts of the city, not just the core downtown, but some of those outlying suburban areas also have access to those services. So
Absolutely.
Can you talk to us about that?
Well, for one, I would actually, and this would have to be up to a referendum. I believe this would be up to the people. But I would be for expanding the urban services districts to the non-urban services districts. So that would be trash pickup, more police patrol, things like that. I would be for that. Just superficially, I'm for that. Well, I'd have to wait for the public to really weigh in on, do you want to pay a little more in taxes to have your trash picked up? Things like that. So I would suggest that would be a referendum. But absolutely, it's right in line with the same thing with education. But you have to be able to convince people in the richer districts who are contributing more that it's okay to use your property taxes from your richer district to improve a poorer district. You have to convince people that that is valuable to them, that will decrease crime, that will decrease a lot of crime.
At the next Metro Council meeting, the council members will be taking up a scooter ordinance that could fundamentally change the way, or the trajectory of scooters here in Nashville. What do you think about scooters here, and how should they be regulated, if at all?
I just watched a video of the Albuquerque police arresting a woman for the DUI on a scooter. And she just couldn't believe that she was getting arrested for a DUI on a scooter. It's like, that's the problem. The problem is the perception of the scooter. Is the scooter a motor vehicle, or is the scooter like, just a little fun thing, you get to have some fun with it? and because it's obviously just a fun thing. I mean, the perception of it, it's just a fun thing. We're going to, get drunk and we're going to get on this thing. It is really a public safety hazard. I mean, I think the data is in. I think the consensus is in. It's a public safety hazard. If they were being used by residents, like for instance, I've taken to riding the bus because I don't like to park downtown and I have an old van that's a gas guzzler. So I've taken to riding the bus when I come in to work at the Symphony. And if there was a scooter at the end of my street to ride to the bus stop, that'd be great. I'd probably pay the 15 cents to ride it, but there's not one there. They're not putting them in the neighborhoods where people are going to use them as an effective public transit. They're putting them downtown where tourists are getting on them and they're having fun and they're getting hurt. They're getting hurt, and it also puts somebody else's life in danger. If you hit somebody and it's even not your fault, that changes your life. You're gonna live with that. You're not gonna. I've had several friends almost hit people on scooters, and it wasn't even their fault, but it would have affected them so negatively for the rest of their life. No, maybe there was something I could have done. Maybe I should have seen them. We need public transportation, but I just don't really see these things as being public transportation. I see them as being like a fad, and maybe something like down the road in the future. If we educate people like we do with driver's ed and getting your driver's license on what the scooter is supposed to be used for, and it's less of a novelty, then maybe down the road. But right now, people are making money hand over fist, and they're not doing it responsibly. They're not going into the neighborhoods where they're claiming that this is going to be an effective mode of transportation for somebody. There's hundreds of them downtown, hundreds of them, and there's none in my neighborhood. And I would hate to say to somebody who is in my neighborhood, actually, who's working for one of the scooter companies that, hey, sorry, you can't make money this way anymore. I would hate to do that, but that's what happens all the time when something is deemed unsafe for public use. It's like, it's just what happens. You're not allowed to drink and drive, so we don't have drive-through, liquor stores, in Tennessee. And we can't really enforce the scooters because nobody would ride them if they were enforced. Nobody would use them as they're intended to be used. I mean, I'm not going to get on one of those things sober. I haven't gotten on one, I'm just saying, but I mean, I don't think anybody rides those things sober. I think most of the people who are using them are inebriated downtown. And I don't have facts to back this up. I'm just going by my observation.
You gave us a very detailed plan about how you would tackle homelessness, and affordable housing is another issue facing people in Nashville. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would tackle the affordable housing crisis?
Well, there are so many variables. There are so many reasons why housing prices go up. One of those is simply population. There's only so much land that you have to build up sometimes. So when you build up, that's more expensive than building, a smaller residence. So, I mean, right off the cuff, right off the bat, I would like to see changes made to zoning where, like, for instance, I live in a single-family home. My neighborhood is zoned for single family. I would like to have the ability to put an unattached dwelling in my backyard and then rent that out to somebody at an affordable rate. I think that's something we can do right off the bat. Just lax the laws regarding the zoning laws, and allow people to put unattached dwellings in their yard. I think a lot of people would voluntarily do this because it adds income to your budget, and it adds I mean, you're only going to be able to charge so much for something like that. It would keep it affordable, and also, I mean, again, if we allow somewhat of a more transparent zoning appeals process, basically. I sat in a meeting where I was just listening to some developers talk, and they were saying we could build more affordable units if we didn't have all this startup cost. And he even kind of hinted, it was like, where's this money going? What is this startup cost to get his zoning? It's not supposed to. You're not charged money to request a zoning approval, a rezoning in an area. So somebody's getting there. Somebody's getting their kickback. So real transparency, and this is what this guy was asking for. He's like, approve this before I have to spend $1 million, and then my overhead cost is lower, and I can make the same amount of profit, as I would, because it's part of it's recouping the construction costs when he sets his price for rents. So if he's making the same profit margin because construction costs are down, so we could allow, like Carol Swain said, modular, things like that, less expensive building techniques. I even like, I personally like the shipping container buildings. I like that, and I would like to see, because that's a prefab home for like $5,000, So I would like to see some areas where that's approved, and we could do affordable housing that way, where a unit costs you $5,000 to get. You just got to pour a concrete foundation, put in plumbing, and build up walls in there. I mean, I've done construction work before. I know the real cost of that would be very minimal. It's just a matter of allowing those types of dwellings. So, I mean, on a market sense, that's a way that we could do more affordable housing. But now here's the negative side of doing that. People are going to say it's going to lower their property values. So affordable housing means that you have to say that this is either going to lower everybody's property value, and that will bring housing costs down, actually, right? So it's a double-edged sword. You say, well, everybody's happy that their house is worth more if they want to sell it, but everybody wants affordable housing at the same time. And I want when I moved here, I rented a room for $250. I wouldn't have been able to stay and then ultimately buy my house, which I don't even want to tell you was a HUD home. I got a really good deal on that. I wouldn't be able to live here now if I didn't know my own home. So I want to see other people have the same opportunities that I have. And this city's been great to me. I moved here, played guitar, on Broadway, which is another thing about panhandling. That's not panhandling. If you're an actual performer, you're a street performer, you should be able to get a license to do that. I actually think they did recently change that. You do have to get a license to be a street performer. So, but
thank you. We are at the end of our interview.
Oh.
One thing we wanted to ask you is, would you tell our viewers why is it that you want their vote, and how can they contact you if you to look more into your background and your website and so forth?
You can call me directly. I have an Austin, Texas phone number. It's 512-696-8090. Well, I mean, I want your vote because I want to represent the city and what I believe the city, what it's been to me. I want to maintain what it has been to me for future generations. I'm an artist. I believe in creativity. It's not easy to be a creative person. It's hard to make a living as a creative person, but this is a city where you can do it, and I want to cherish that. I want to, if you believe that Asheville is a creative city, then I want your vote, please, because I want to represent you.
Good. We want to thank you. We want to thank the viewers of this broadcast. You can watch all the videos, whether live or replay them on Tennessean.com, and also read the answers to the questionnaire that we asked each candidate. Thank you very much, and remember that the deadline to register to vote is July 2nd. Early voting starts on July 12th, and your last opportunity to vote is August 1st. Remember that your vote is your voice. Thank you very much.